a bank robbery movie, Ocean's 11 or some shit, and said, man, I'd love to do that. It'd be exciting, or I'd just love to have the money from the jewels or whatever. Would have landed you in prison, right? But you don't do it. You don't do it because you're afraid. And you're afraid because the law tells you that if you do it, you're going to be put in a cage. What if I told you that most of the world's problems today didn't have to do with religion, didn't have to do with political ideology? What if I told you that most of the world's problems today had to do with human guilt? Feeling guilty about your thoughts or actions. And what if I said that the first nonfiction book I'm going to put out, most of you guys know I have some books out on Amazon. You can look up my name. I don't promote them on this show. The first nonfiction book I was going to put out was going to set you free. But there was a catch. I'm going to let you behave like an animal. I'm going to take the laws away. But the problem is I'm going to undo all of the advances, if you want to call them that society has made in the past 15,000 years or so in civilized behavior. What is civilized behavior? Somebody calls you a name, you can't punch them. That's assault, right? In most states. In fact, assault is usually defined as any unwanted touching. You could literally poke someone in the shoulder and go to jail for assault. And I mean that sincerely. Check your state laws. What if I said we're going to take those laws away? I'm going to let you be an animal. You know, just pretend for a second I'm a dictator and you're suddenly found yourself in this fascist-controlled nation of mine. And I say, you know, we had all these laws about, you know, you couldn't do this and you couldn't do that, but I'm taking all those laws away. I want you to behave how your mind is asking you to behave. What would you think about that? A lot of you guys that listen to the show regularly know that one of my favorite things to do is to paint by contrast. Sometimes you cannot see the thing right in front of you. But if you just paint the background, all of a sudden the thing in front of you emerges very clearly. I love doing that because it's the half that always gets forgotten. You know, when I try to tell you a point, when anybody on any show tries to explain a point to you, what they're usually not saying is this, and I'm going to try to encapsulate this as small as I can, and that is to say, I'm showing you what's in front of you, but I'm not going to show you the opposite of it. So let me show you the opposite of it, which will further enhance your understanding of the it. So what I'm saying is, what if I take away all the laws? How would you change today? You still worry, I know, about social pressure. You cannot go out and rob a bank even if the laws are gone, because what will your friends think of you? What will your family think of you? What will strangers think of you? Well, there's no laws. What if somebody decides that you ought not be robbing that bank and pulls out a gun on you? Starts shooting. There's no laws. They can't. They're not going to jail. What if I said that most of the world's problems today are a result of what you think others will think of you? So we take all the laws away. And we promise you that nobody will know what you do, except for the people that you do it to. And if you tell them they're not allowed to tell anybody, then they're not allowed to tell anybody. So if you carjack somebody who's got a Lamborghini, it's yours. If they're intimidated enough by the gun and they don't have defense, it's yours, legally. I mean, finders keepers. And they're not allowed to tell anybody about it. So now you can't be judged for it. You just show up, your friends are going, "Wow, you got a Lamborghini, how'd you get it?" Well, now you got to decide, do you want to lie? Yeah, you know, I found it. Found it on the side of the road. Keys in it and everything. Look at this thing. I'm going to go get personalized plates. So, if what I'm saying here is that most of the world's problems today are a result of man feeling guilty about his thoughts or actions, and I tell you I'm going to take all the laws away, and I'm going to take all of the social justice that is cast upon you away, then what's left over? There's your animal right there. I can already hear you thinking, wait, I'm going to have to unlearn? If I want to live in this world you're just describing, Kevin, I'm going to have to unlearn civilized behavior. I'm going to have to unlearn it. See, I do good things for people, and I ask why. Why? If you are not familiar with it, I strongly encourage you, especially if you don't have a background in psychology, or sociology to get into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't think I've ever seen such a well-shaped consolidation of human needs and behaviors. Hi, Andrew. Welcome to the chat. Andrew from Australia. Where are you from, Matt, by the way? And Val, I don't remember where you're from. I think it's Texas, but I usually get stuff like that wrong, so you'll have to refresh my memory. Shit, where was I? See, this is why the show needs a rewind feature. Somebody tell me where I just was before Andrew came in. Anyway, it's about guilt. It's about you feeling guilt about your behavior. Oh, Netherlands. So do you happen to know RD, Matt? Or are you RD with a new name? For all I know, RD has multiple personalities. My Deutschland brothers. That's actually Germany, but you know, I fuck around with language. I love my European brothers, by the way. If you haven't heard the show before, Matt, Andrew will tell you. I have probably more respect for the average Australian, the average European, than I do my own fellow Americans. And the reason I say that is because you all seem to be a little bit more advanced on cultural issues. I want Americans to be like that. I want us to understand the lessons that have been taught over thousands of years of human history, as Europe has, as Australia has, rather than to just look at our little 200-something odd year history and say, oh, okay, so that's how it works. No, it's far deeper than that, my friends. In the Netherlands, Matt, how many racists are there? And I'm going to ask you again, Andrew, in Australia, how many racists are there? Put a percentage on it for me. What is racism? Racism is part of the animal, folks. And I've told you before, if you grew up in a cave, if you were down in a pit, for example, and you just drank rainwater and bugs that crawled around, and you were 21 years old, you'd never dealt with another human, and you're white, and a tribe of black people come up and rescue you. They pull you out. Now, you haven't had a mirror or anything, but you've been able to look at your body. You know that you're different than them. You're immediately going to know there's something different here. I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. That's going to be your first instinct. Compare that to what you see today with something like the KKK. How does that, which is your first thought about the differences in race, end up to extreme international organization of hatred that will kill people for their color and for no other reason? This is all part of the animal inside you. But here's the thing. When I told you, strip away all of those societal pressures that have been put on you, strip away all of the legal implications of your behavior, strip away any judgment that could be placed on you by another human, and just be the animal that you are, if I could convince you to do that, what would be killed? Something that tortures you every day, if you're not a psychopath, is guilt. It's guilt. You feel guilty about things you've done in the past. You guys can't tell me that you don't have 5 or 10 major things in your past you would go undo today if you could. That's guilt. Now the question is, if all the laws were removed and all the societal judgment was removed, would you still feel guilt about those things? And if you answer that yes, then I want you to fill in the answer of why. Why? Where did guilt come from? I knew it. I knew you were going to say 10%, Andrew. That's a low number. Andrew says in Australia, 10%, most in Queensland, South and Western Australia. Tell me how much that has to do with affairs that have happened inside Australia, Andrew. And then Matt says in the Netherlands about 20%. Well, you know, I don't know what I would put on. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. I'm going to Google real quick. I've got some stuff I'm going to share with you guys tonight about the animal inside of you. And my first nonfiction book is probably going to do a lot of damage for people that decide to follow it, because I'm going to set that animal free. I'm going to tell you, go ahead, be an animal. But there's going to be some caveats. So first of all, how many Americans are considered racist? And this is going to have to come down to a poll, I'm sure. Let's see, there's a study, a political blind spot. Who's got, and you got to look at motives here. You know, if it's NAACP, they're probably going to find a higher number because that helps them in their fight for social equality and raising money. So majority of Americans are racist against blacks, says rawstory.com. Don't know their angle, can't tell you if they're reputable. Look at this. In the survey, 56% of Americans showed some anti-black feelings, whether implicitly or explicitly. That percentage has actually risen in the 4 years since President Obama took office. So this was done in roughly 2012, up from 49% in 2008, indicating that, if anything, anti-black attitudes have become more prevalent since that landmark election. That finding is based on poll questions that both directly asked respondents questions about their feelings toward particular races, as well as more subtle questions that gauged racial attitudes without mentioning the subject. Yet, on the questions that explicitly gauged overt racism, a slim 51% majority of Americans still showed anti-black bias, versus 48% who did not show anti-black bias. How about that? That finding came one day after Colin Powell's former chief of staff said his Republican Party was full of racists. Now, see, now we're getting into attack the Republicans. I'm not down with that. I'm not going to. I mean, if we do that, I'm going to get one equally that attacks Democrats. But you know, I'm also not a person who thinks you got to keep everything equal. Maybe it's not equal. How about just giving the real story? You know, if 70% of the country is leaning more left and 30% is leaning right, I'm not going to try to make it look 50-50. It's funny because Jon Stewart did a show, it was Stephen Colbert, I think, and he's like, every time they present an argument about climate change, they've got 1 for and 1 against, 1 for and 1 against. He said, let's make it more realistic. He brought in 3 scientists that said it's bullshit, and then 7 scientists that said, bullshit, it's real. And I thought that was far more accurate. So yeah, that's Truth on Tap for me is really about getting you not just truth, but accurate truth. Study finds white Americans believe they experience more racism than African Americans. Wow. And this was done January 3rd, 2014 from Political Blind Spot. Very interesting article. I'm going to share this on the Facebook announcement for the show you're listening to right now. That Facebook page is facebook.com/truthontapshow. Facebook.com/truthontapshow. Don't forget the show. TOTS is an easy way to remember that. And on there you'll see the announcement for Broken Manimal, I will free mankind. And I will. But I'm going to have to pay a price to do that. Can you imagine after I've published my first nonfiction book, which basically, in a nutshell, is giving human beings the permission to behave as they would naturally, without laws, rules, and regulations? Can you imagine the pushback I'm going to get from that? I can. So I shared that one, did not know that many white people thought they had experienced racism versus other races. So let me get out of there. And I'm also going to share the one I was just reading from. And then we're going to talk about people and animals and how different they are from one another. I will contend that we're not any different than animals. We have the ability to reason, which we assume is better than that of other animals. We carry with us guilt. We harbor rage. We hide things from people. We lie to people. We do a lot of things that animals don't do. And that doesn't make us special. And I think we should stop seeing ourselves as so far advanced from the animal kingdom. Because we are animals. Hey, Apocalypse, welcome to the chat. Haven't seen you in a while. Did you do a show recently? Because I didn't see it. If you did, I'll share it if you did. And I'm reading, talk a little bit about racism here. Matt's saying that in the Netherlands it's about 20% racist. Andrew's saying in Australia it's about 10%. And these are just their estimates, of course. And then this is something here. Matt said my Christian upbringing embedded a guilt complex in me. I understand that. And Andrew says, the only issue I ever had was between two German tourists and my ex-black wife.